This is 911. Do you have an emergency?
Today on Rescue 911, a faulty furnace ignites into a propane fireball,
I thought at first that the house had been hit by lightning.
leaving 2 children fighting for their lives. Then, a runaway log
And Harold says, my hips broke, and he says, I'm crushed inside.
puts a lumberjack in danger.
Harold's dying, and there's nothing I can do for him.
Emergency crews go out on a limb on Rescue 911.
On June 21st, 1988, Bill Walter and his family were living in a small wood frame house on the cattle ranch he was managing on the eastern plains of Colorado. Actors have helped us reconstruct what happened inside the Walter home on that summer afternoon. But all the volunteer and professional rescuers have returned to help us tell the story of a courageous family and a caring community.
I was in the kitchen, and I was getting ready to fix our supper. And I had turned on the hot water to wash my hands, and it came out cold.
It's on the other side. It doesn't. No, we don't have any hot water.
Assuming that the pilot light had gone out on the water heater, I asked my husband, Bill, to go down to the basement and relight it for us.
Come on, you guys. Get your shoes on.
When we continue,
Their whole lives were being changed just in that instant. That's what flashed through my mind.
The children were planning to go out, help do chores with their dad, so they were sitting at the top of the stairs putting their shoes on.
as in many remote areas, the Walters water heater was fueled by propane, a colorless gas.
I had fed our baby Abby and put her to bed.
Fine, we'll have a race. Whoever wins gets to be dog.
I thought at first that the house had been hit by lightning. That's all I could think of. Bill was hollering and the kids were screaming, and the first vision that I saw of them was unrecognizable. I realized that an accident had occurred and that they were burned. And the only thing that I could remember was to dial 911.
911.
Hi, it's Lori at 911. I have an explosion.
911 operator Lori Manuel transferred the call to Sheriff's Dispatcher Renee Pethick and stayed on the line in case she could help.
I've got to turn some water on. Hang on just a minute.
I heard children screaming in the background. It's a scream that I've never heard before.
Their whole lives were being changed just in that instant. That's what flashed through my mind.
The call for help went out. Volunteer emergency services were the first to respond. Neighbors from across the county were alerted through a system of pagers.
3560 Ellicott Highway. We have 2 children and 1 adult.
Everybody that heard the call realized the seriousness of it.
Feeding SO3 volunteers respond to a propane explosion.
You take your fire gear and you're out the door. If you're going towards the station, you may pick up equipment. If the call is on your end of the area, you just go direct.
Volunteer Gene Willard, a trained emergency medical technician, stopped to pick up the ambulance.
It makes the adrenaline pump. You have friends, you have neighbors, and you may pick them up and they may die right in your arms.
Okay, I'm back. Ma'am, yeah, this is 911. I SO has you on hold. They're taking care of getting people to you. I'm going to connect you to the city fire department. They're going to help give you advice until somebody gets there, okay? Go ahead and talk to the fire department. Okay. Yes, this is the fire department. How old is the patient? Okay, we have three. We have a male that's 36. We have a small boy, 6, and a girl, 4. Their skin is just, it looks like their skin is just burned right off. Okay. Because the best thing to do is just put a light, dry dressing, a sheet, if possible. How much of their body? All over. Their hair, their face, their arms, everything. Half of their shirts are burned off and everything. Okay, are they having any problems breathing? Yes, my daughter is, the 4-year-old. Okay, you need to watch her. I want you to go back, look at her, and see if she's breathing okay, all right? Okay, hang on, come back to the phone.
Cindy Walters was still on the phone with the fire department when the first rescuers arrived. Jean's daughter, Shauna Nelson, an off-duty Colorado Springs paramedic, took charge at the scene.
The treatment of burn patients is going through my mind. Burns are always difficult to handle. I had seen burn patients before, but I wasn't prepared for what I did see.
You walk in, and this goes through your mind in a flash. If I pick her up, I'm going to hurt her. If I pick her up, I'm going to contaminate her. But she has to be moved, she has to get in the hospital, and you don't have time to waste.
When the pool of propane gas exploded, a fireball shot up the cinder block stairway and out of the house. The 2 children sitting on the stairs were both severely burned.
I was extremely concerned about Adam. He actually did stop breathing at one point for about 30 to 45 seconds. I yelled at him and I did a sternal rub, and he began breathing again. I kept thinking, what's going to happen to this family? I thought that perhaps the children might die. And I really didn't even have the time to say, Mr. Walters, if there's anything you want to say to these 2 children, say it now.
Cindy Walters followed her family to the hospital.
When they came out and they were on the gurneys and they wheeled them past us, you wouldn't have known who they were. Their hair was gone, their eyelashes and eyebrows. They were swollen almost twice the size that they had been. When Megan came through, I knew she couldn't hear me, but I leaned over to her and I touched the top of her head and I said, "Honey, I love you." And the rest of her hair fell out in my hand. And I thought that was the end. My children aren't even there anymore.
Megan, Adam, and their father, Bill, were transported to the regional burn center at Penrose Hospital in Colorado Springs. Plastic surgeon Alexander McCullough was on call that night.
All 3 of the patients were in very critical condition with 2nd and 3rd degree burns. No question that their lives were in danger.
From that time on, I really prayed that they would die. I did not want them to live through the pain that they would have to have, through the disfigurements and also the social shunning. And so I did. I prayed that way. And then in the morning, when they were still alive, I thought, well, I need to change my thinking. They're alive this long, and we need to work with this now.
Months of skin grafts and slow healing began, especially for Megan and Adam.
When we were real sick in the hospital, it was really confusing because we really didn't know what happened to us at that time. We couldn't talk.
We had to dress them, we had to feed them, we had to do everything for them.
Within weeks, they were outfitted with special silicone masks and elastic bodysuits to help reduce the scarring. They started a program of intensive therapy to increase their mobility.
Then began our process of little miracles. They began to heal in different things. Even though the outside of them was changed and would never be the same, the inside was still there, and I was thankful for that.
A year later, the Walters have begun to build a new life. They never went back to the house that brought them so much sadness.
Father, we thank you for the day. We thank you for watching over us and providing.
I'm very proud of my children because of what's happened. They will have to
exceed what is acceptable for the normal person. In ways, I wished I had the same determination and stamina as they did.
You got 2 runs
Are you
in.
getting better at hitting the ball?
All of the patients have done very well. As time goes by, usually the scars improve.
It goes run, it's kind of like
I expect that they'll be able to do pretty much what they want to do in the future.
Their bodies always will look like they have been burned, and there will be differences there. We want to give the kids the self-confidence inside that they can deal with that. We have told both of the kids that they are special, and that because of what they've gone through, they're going to be able to reach people that others can't. And so I'm anticipating something really special.
I think part of living, the biggest part of living, is learning how to live life, no matter what the conditions are. So it's not a cause for giving up or quitting.
It's kind of like an adventure when you're going through the jungle and you don't know what's gonna pop up. I think it's really gonna be good.
Next,
As long as you keep your eyes and ears open and watch out what you're doing, it's really not all that dangerous.
By 9 a.m. on August 10th, 1989, longtime friends John Horseman and Harold Gerber had already been hard at work for hours in a remote forest outside Bellingham, Washington. They had no idea that it might be the last time they would ever work together.
I like watching trees fall down. You watch them fall, and they hit the ground, and they kind of bounce around like a fish out of water. And as long as you keep your eyes and ears open and watch out what you're doing, it's really not all that dangerous. We started work about 6 o'clock, and we worked straight through. I was cutting on timber on my strip, which is where I cut trees down and buck them into log length. And Harold was working his strip, doing the same thing. And we worked for several hours that morning. He fell a tree, and then he jumped up on it, and he bucked it into log lengths.
they'd already been working for 6 hours that day when Harold noticed a log up the hill from him that looked unstable.
He looked back at it, and he realized that log there was nothing holding it there. It was on a steep side hill, you know, about probably 65% slope, and he looked at that log up there and thought, this doesn't look safe.
Harold tested the stability of the 3,000-pound log. But when he found he could not move it, he returned to work on the slope below. John could not hear Harold's whistle or cries for help because he was wearing earplugs.
I was gassing myself up, and as I gassed it up, I looked back down the hill, and I didn't see Harold or where he should be or anything else other than his saw and his hard hat. So I pulled my earplugs out at that time to listen down, and as I pulled my earplug out, I could hear him say, "John, get me out of here."
Okay, Harold, just hang on, I'll be right there.
I was real scared for him, and so I dropped everything at that point. I was afraid when I first seen him, and Harold says, "My hips broke," and he says, "I'm crushed inside, John. I can feel it."
Oh, no.
John had enough training in emergency first aid to realize the seriousness of his friend's injuries.
His pelvis was either crushed or broken, and there was blood seeping from the head of the meatrium at that point. And I knew then how serious his injuries really were. And with the logs being unstable and rolling around, if they roll, that top log would just crush him to death right there. So at that point, I run to my pickup and called for help. And I picked up a truck driver who was working on a different logging site not too far, a couple miles away from us. And I said, "It's your ball. You have got to get me help as quick as you can. Harold's dying. There's nothing I can do for him."
Hey, you guys! Somebody's hurt over on John's side! Head on over there!
While John continued to radio for help, 3 loggers set out to run the 3 miles to the site where he and Harold had been working. A trucker in Bellingham was the next to pick up John's urgent call. He quickly got the basic information about the location of the accident and ran to the nearest phone to call 911.
911. Yes, I was listening on CB on Channel 7, and the guy wanted an ambulance and a helicopter. There was a logger with pinned on Canyon Lake Road.
The first information was immediately relayed, and 3 ground medical units were dispatched to the scene.
Contact the Kendall.
Kendall.
Can you pass the word along that med flight will be in the air in just a few minutes?
Will do.
Good. Sir, thanks for helping.
Yep.
Okay, bye.
Bye-bye.
There's no doubt he was in shock, and when he was laying there, he says, "You think I could possibly die?" And I told him, "Harold, I don't know, you're gonna die, believe me, but you better not die right now."
It took about an hour to get to the scene by the rough and winding logging roads. The first unit to arrive was the Welcome Volunteer Fire Department, led by EMT John Heiser.
We're running out of time, and it's what they call, the surgeons call the golden hour. You know, the first hour after some major trauma like this. They want that individual in the hospital. His best chances of surviving are within that first hour. And we just about used that up getting there.
Worried that the log might roll back onto Harold again and kill him, the loggers decided to risk moving him.
Harold was still conscious and alert, but at that time, John Heiser was coming around the corner with his stuff and the spine board, and then all we had to do then at that point is lift Harold and set him on the spine board, and help started coming real quick after that.
Paramedic Tony McQuinn was next.
We found Harold talking, but he was in severe pain. He was very pale. He didn't have a palpable pulse on his wrist, and any movement at all, he would really wince or yell in pain. He had lost a lot of blood because of his injuries, so he placed what's called mask pants on him and inflated those to stabilize his pelvis. He needed a surgeon immediately.
By road, it could take an hour and a half to get Harold to the hospital. By helicopter, it would take only 8 minutes, and every minute counted.
At that point, I was demoralized. I just, like losing your best friend, basically, and that's what it was. That's how I felt at that point. It was more than I could handle at the time, and try to keep myself calm. And then when they finally put him in the helicopter, at that point, there was a real loss. Something was being taken away from me, and I didn't know if Harold was still going to be alive when I got to the hospital to see him.
Harold was flown to St. Joseph Hospital South Campus in Bellingham. Dr. Marvin Wayne headed the emergency team.
Whenever we hear of pelvic injuries, a patient can literally bleed to death because of bleeding in that area of the body. So with the extent of the injuries that he had, with the crushed pelvis, with the torn urethra, with the collapsed lung, had he not been extricated and stabilized in a timely manner, Mr. Gerber very well might not would have been with us here today.
I feel fortunate. I feel lucky to be here. But apparently, the way I look at it is apparently it wasn't my time.
After a month and a half of bed rest, Harold's fractured pelvis has repaired itself. Life with his 3 children and his wife Janet is almost back to normal.
He's a very good-hearted person. It's one of the reasons why I married him. He's always comes in the door happy. You can be madder than hell at him and he'll come in the door happy and it'll wreck it.
Though Harold's recovery has been remarkable, he may never be strong enough to return to timber cutting.
What's the next step? Get healed up and continue to march on with life.
I would do anything for Harold. And whether or not Harold ever comes back to work in the woods again, old Harold and I will still be going fishing and we'll still be going hunting because we don't work on the weekends.
Excellent, John.
Step out of the car, please.